SoCal Gaming Expo is right around the corner, and a lot of people are really excited about it. For those of you who aren't familiar, SoCal Gaming Expo is one of the largest video game expos in Southern California. I think it's probably the Super Bowl for a lot of collectors and traders of video games and YouTube content creators and social media folks. This is probably the place where a lot of them go for, to meet, for the camaraderie, to, bask in the ambiance of the retro gaming community or just the video game community in general. And a few people have asked me if I'm going to go, and I'm not. No knock to the convention or the expo, no knock to any of the people who put it together. I'm sure it's an amazing time. I'm just going to be busy. We've got some family birthdays happening this weekend, and so it's just not going to work out for me to be able to get there. But there is a cost associated with it, and that's kind of what I want to talk about here, the cost of rarity. Because for me, one of the main benefits of going to something like a retro gaming expo or a video game expo is to be able to have access to some of the more rare video games that sometimes you can't even find on eBay, right? There are video games, there are titles, there are certain pieces that you just cannot seem to get your hands on. And the only way you're really going to get them is if you bump into someone at a convention who happens to have that title. Maybe it's a title that you can find online, but you just can't find it complete in box, or you can't find it new, you can't find it sealed. Maybe there's an insert that comes in the box, maybe a poster, maybe a pendant or something like that. And the only way you're going to find it in its most complete form is if you run into a collector who is at the convention. And I think that part is cool, right? Being able to see that and see someone, a real life person who has that game or that thing that you want, is a very cool thing. However, there is a cost associated with that. And to be able to get access to that and have that experience, there is a premium. And for me, the thing that I've battled with the most is really trying to figure out if the juice is worth the squeeze when it comes to that. And there's two reasons why I feel that way. One is the logistics behind actually going to a convention, whether you have to drive there, fly there, find parking, deal with the massive crowds. And I've gone to retro video game conventions. I've gone to a couple on the East Coast, so I have an idea of what that atmosphere is like. And there's just logistics behind all of that that you have to factor into. And if you're a person who is going to be going with their family, if you're a person, just depending on who you are, everything that it's going to take for you to get there, lodging, food, all that stuff, sometimes the logistics can just be a little bit of pain. And I get it, right? That some people treat like going to, a convention as kind of like their vacation, maybe a staycation, which is really awesome. Man, that sounds like an amazing staycation. Travel to Southern California, one of the most beautiful places on earth, at least weather-wise. Hit up a couple beaches, go to some restaurants, hit up a gaming convention. That sounds like an amazing staycation, even for me. But just from a logistics standpoint, at this time, it just doesn't work. I feel like it would be more headache than it would be, a reward for me. And I think it's primarily because I'm very, very specific about which rare games I'm looking for. And I would be absolutely deflated if I got there and the one or two games that I was looking for weren't available. So that's part one. And then I think part two is there is a there's definitely classes when it comes to these conventions, right? You have your top tier class, which are obviously going to be the vendors. Once the vendors get there, the vendors are really the ones who get the first pick of the litter. They're going to meet each other, they're going to see each other, they're going to get, they're going to get the chance to lay eyes on all the wares of all the vendors that are there, and they're usually going to kind of make their deals and do their stuff before anyone has a chance to look at the games. And I think deals between vendors might be okay because for the most part, vendors are there to sell games that are there. I feel like if a vendor were to, buy or sell to another vendor, they're probably just adding to their own personal collection, which is fine. But then you have that second tier, which is the tier of like, I guess your A-list guests, which would be like friends of the vendors, YouTube content creators, social media folks, resellers, things like that. And those people kind of are in that, second tier, right underneath that top tier. And they're the ones that kind of get the first pick of the litter. And if you're someone who's going to a convention looking for a specific game, or you're looking for something, even like a complete in-box copy of Pokemon Soul Silver, if you're really trying to get there and, take advantage, but all the Pokemon Soul Silver, copies are gone because, a reseller or someone else got a chance to get to it before you, then that's kind of a bummer, right? You kind of put in all that work and effort to get there, and someone else kind of just went and picked over everything, and you're pretty much not necessarily left with the scraps, but the resellers really take all of the stuff, all of the games that make sense, right? Because usually what will happen is the stuff that's left is the common stuff that probably not many people want, or the really overpriced stuff that no one's really gonna get. It's just like really cool to look at. Like, most people aren't gonna go there and buy a game that's valued at over, $1,500 or something. A transaction like that happening is probably really rare, but most people will probably be willing to spend somewhere between maybe $50 and $200 on one single game. And it's usually games in that bracket, right? Like, games that are rare and fall into that, 50 to 75, all the way up to maybe 200, 250. That's kind of the sweet spot. But that's the spot that gets annihilated, like annihilated. And then that tier where you have those games between like 75 and maybe $40, that gets completely obliterated. Like, especially if those games are complete in box in good condition, say goodnight, because those are, some people might call games in that price range filler, but usually those are like the really good games, the fun games that people like actually want to play. Yeah, they're nice to have in your collection, but they're not statement collection pieces like some of the more pricey games would be. And so those are the games that probably a lot of convention goers would really go after. And again, like when those are the games that are being picked over and just being absolutely destroyed before you can get a chance to even see them, then it kind of takes the air out of the room when you walk in and you kind of realize that. And if you've done any amount of video game hunting anywhere, if you've gone to any convention, you can almost look at a table, look at a shelf, or look at a rack and know that it's been picked over kind of just by what's left. Or maybe I shouldn't say like no one's Nostradamus, but if you've gone game hunting and you've gone into a store and you just by what's left, you can kind of almost tell like, there was probably some really good stuff here, and the person who bought the really good stuff just decided to leave this stuff behind. And that's just a little bit deflating. And so for me, I would kind of rather just do my hunting either before the expo and try to see what deals I can get, or do my hunting after the expo. Let everybody, go through and buy and sell what they want to buy and sell. Let the deals happen. And then if there's anything left over that's worthwhile for me, then I'll see what I can scoop up on the back end. But it's just not something that I'm really gonna go after. But if you are going to the expo, shout out to you. Hope you have a great time. I'm sure there's gonna be a ton of YouTube videos about it. Content creators love to make that stuff. So we'll see what happens. But for now, I'm gonna keep hunting in the back streets and the alleyways, doing my little side deals, and continue to try to grow the collection. But let me know, do you think that going to a convention is worth the price of finding a rare game? I'm interested to know your thoughts. Let me know down in the comments. It's the Y2K Collector. Take it easy.